Welcome to the Rusty Bug Podcast.
Mulweni, hello, goeiemorgen, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this. Welcome to the RGJS Podcast. And today I'm with Mrs. Dudley. I want to ask you something before we actually start off and kick off and introduce our guests. So I know in isiXhosa it's Molweni, which is hello, and English is hello. But in Afrikaans, I know goeiemorgen, goeiemiddag, goeienacht, which is good.
That's correct.
Good morning, good day, and good evening. Am I correct?
That's
but
correct.
what is a general hello in Afrikaans? Whether I want to, what can I use that I want to say hello, whether it's at night, it's in the evening, or whatever? Is there such a word?
Hello.
It's hello.
Hi, hoe gaan dit?
Okay, lovely. Mrs. Dudley, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Considering we've come to the end of the term and a lot that has to be wrapped up.
Yeah.
And still needs to be.
I mean, a lot of people think that being a teacher, or being in a classroom, when school closes, you close. What happens when schools close? What do you do?
When schools close for the kids, I'm in bed watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Unless I have to come in for those last 2 days at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's kind of wrapping up what we've done for the year and preparing for the following year.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's get into today. We've got a very special guest, and I'm very excited about this one because I think, I should have asked you for a bio actually before you came through so that I can read your bio. But what I've noticed in my experience being in Rustenburg, I mean, I've been here for 3 years, and which means I've known you for 3 years. Before I tell you who our guest is, I've known our guest for 3 years. But I look at her and sometimes I ask her, in my head, does she have a bone of fear? Because she's able to move in any space. So give her anything at any given day, she will move. Put her in a classroom, she will make magic. Put her in the Western Cape Department of Education, she makes magic. Put her in the deputy principal post, she will make magic. And she's always been doing that. Renée Harris, Mrs. Harris. And I know the girls are listening, so I'm trying to avoid the Renée part. When I joined the school for the first time in my life, when my family called me, friends called me and said, how was your day and how's your first week being in school? And all I said to them was like, Mr. Pukuja, Mr. Pukuja, Mr. Pukuja. It's happening the whole day. It's ringing in my head. And I'm used to being addressed as Tapelo, which I'm okay with. How are you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Tapelo, I had quite a giggle listening to you introduce me. I am well, exhausted, along with every other teacher around the world.
Yeah. And how's been the journey of teaching been for you?
Sure. Look, I've been teaching for 28 years now.
No ways. 28 years.
Giving away my age a little bit.
28 years ago, before you go, and I was probably 3 or 2 or something like that.
Now you're giving away your age.
No, my age, I don't mind. Yeah.
I think, Tapelo, since I was a little girl, I've always known that I wanted to be a teacher. From little, lining up the dolls on the bed and actually taking a ruler and slapping each one of them. I've been one of those who were very fortunate to always know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
In Matric, there were many of my peers who had absolutely no idea what they wanted to do when they left school, but I've always known. And I think the journey has been, there've been ups and downs.
Yeah.
As we know with the Western Cape Department, they can throw you a curveball at the drop of a hat. I've seen through 5 different curriculums. It's been challenging. But I think the one thing that has kept me going is my passion for teaching.
Sure.
I'm not an office job type of 9 to 5, look at papers and, in teaching, you don't know what you're going to get on any given day. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Sure. And I want to ask you this before we go on to the topic. Do you remember your first day in a classroom? And I'll tell you why.
Absolutely. I remember that day.
So in my intro, I spoke about you not having fear. You move in any space. I think when I came in 2021, Mrs. Khaldanay said to me, do you want to do some enrichment with the girls? And said, you know what, come visit the class. I'll introduce you and you will do your enrichment program, you'll tell it what it's about. I think she gave me 2 periods. It's my first time, and she's not even giving me 1 period, she's giving me 2 period, Mel. And I was like, sure, you know what? I can speak in front of adults. And I get in there and good morning, girls, and they all stand up. Good morning. And this is the first time
enough to make the sweat run down your face.
And this is my first time, and I experienced that, and I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. But as time went, I started understanding the school environment, the bell, and all of those things. But do you remember your first day in the classroom?
As a teacher, I take it you're talking about.
As a teacher, as a learnership, your first day you went into a class.
I'll tell you this much, that nothing prepares you, no training or anything like that prepares you for when you step into that classroom.
Yeah.
But the night before, I didn't sleep. In fact, I think a week before, I didn't sleep. I was playing in my mind, minute by minute. I'd written everything down, what I was going to say, what the learners were going to say. I just couldn't sleep because I was a nervous wreck. And I must say, at the end of that year, I actually, and I still look back on it today, and I ask myself, gee, that first class that I had, I wonder if they learnt anything that year.
Sure.
But I do know that they had fun.
Yeah.
I don't know how much learning took place, but we had loads of fun.
Yeah.
I want to ask, have you run into any of those learners?
Absolutely, I have.
And so give us a little bit of feedback. Have they come to you? You've recognized them and gone up and said, hey, I taught you in my first year of teaching.
No, I think a lot of the kids come up to you. Some of them you recognize, some of them you don't. It's very embarrassing when they come when you're teaching their children.
Sure.
And you're teaching, in some cases, their grandchildren. So there are those moments in the shopping center where you actually think, gosh, I'm getting old.
Sure.
But have you had any of the kids whom you that first experience in the classroom?
I have, yes. Not necessarily in my very first year, but within the first 3 years, I have connected with some of them.
And I'm sure that you taught them something, even though you feel you had a lot of fun in the classroom. I think that's important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure. I want to jump into the meat of the conversation, Renée. This PBL, IBL, it's just going in, it's the word and the buzzword around the school environment, couple of weeks ago, I think, 4th term, I can't remember, SMT did a presentation, and I think 2nd term or maybe late of 2nd term to 3rd term, where parents were in, and there was a presentation of PBL, IBL. Yes. So now let's speak about it. What is PBL? What is IBL? Sorry if I'm using...
So, there are all these acronyms that we have to learn. We know WCD loves acronyms. This is not a WCD acronym. So PBL stands for Project-Based Learning, IBL, Inquiry-Based Learning. They're very similar. I'll speak about the difference in a minute. But I think, if we look at the traditional way of teaching, as you would know it, you sat in a classroom, you had your maths lesson and your biology lesson and so on. With IBL or PBL, it's very much an integrated approach. So when I walk into a traditional classroom and I say to you, what subject are you doing now? You'll be able to tell me I'm doing maths or English or whatever. But when you walk into an IBL classroom or PBL classroom and you say to the learners, what subject are you doing now?
Sure.
They may not necessarily be able to pinpoint exactly what it is because the subjects are so integrated. So it's a shift from an integrated approach, but also looking at learners being exposed to real-life questions or scenarios. So they have to think critically, they have to analyze, they have to, there's a lot of active engagement. So in essence, that's really what IBL is about.
So can I ask, so at the center or the focus is on the child being curious about the world and asking questions. So it's kind of child-driven.
Child-driven, yes. Yeah. So if we look at the traditional style of teaching where You have chalk and talk, as we know it. The teacher imparts the knowledge, and the learner becomes that passive sponge, as it were. So there's a drive. The drive for PBL, IBL is the approach to teaching and learning is very learner-driven. There's a lot of teacher acts as facilitator as opposed to leading
being the
or
fountain,
imparting knowledge.
the fountain of all knowledge.
Absolutely.
So a change from that.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing for me, I'm going to put my mom cap on at this point. I think a lot of parents can relate to this kind of thing where your child comes home from school and says, why must I learn this?
Yeah.
I don't, and really, do they just want me to study because I need to, I need to write exams and they need stuff for me to write on? So they don't actually make the connections, and this is the beauty of project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, is that it's real life scenarios, real life questions, and so they understand why they're learning what they're learning because they're able to implement that. So it's very much, I've lost my train of thought. It's gone out the window. Mel, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so it makes it more relevant to them.
Absolutely. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Making learning meaningful.
Yeah.
Where they feel it's relevant and more engaged. I had a learner in my class this year where the parent came in and said that her child felt, or she was asking questions about, why do I have to learn this? Why do I have to do that? So we're trying to move away from that and make them more interested in learning and wanting to learn.
Yeah. And I think, again, when my child asked me that question, why must I learn this? I actually had to sit down and think, and because she said to me, but I'm not going to be this profession, that profession, so therefore I don't need.
Yeah.
And it actually made me think.
So would you say that those questions that your daughter is asking you are relevant in that kind of questioning the way in which we have been teaching and continuing to teach, that there needs to be a shift?
Absolutely.
For the world that they're growing up in.
If I take myself, I'm just linking back to Tapelo, the question that you asked me around my first day at school.
Yeah.
When I stepped into that classroom, everything that I'd learnt at tertiary education was thrown out the window. So what does that tell you in terms of traditional teaching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe, because we're speaking about something that's so important, sorry, Mel, you jump in just now, about the why. Why is there a need to go that route? Why is there a need to even introduce PBL and IBL?
So I think first and foremost, it's we are preparing learners for a future that we actually don't know what it looks like for them.
Yeah.
And if you think about the types of careers, the paths that they're going to follow, the jobs that will be available to them when they take up those various roles, we don't know what that looks like. But we do know that the types of skills that they need, they need the critical thinking. It doesn't matter what sort of career you go into. And just in terms of functioning as an adult, the life skills. So project-based learning, inquiry-based learning is very much skills-based.
Yeah.
And those are skills that they are going to need going forward.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that. I think already in business, going out into the business world, they're already looking at working collaboratively as a team, having those critical thinking skills, sharing ideas.
Thinking out of the box.
And there we go, thinking out of the box. Yes. I sometimes worry teaching in the classroom and seeing that the kids are unable to do that because we've been teaching them in that old way of, we give you the information, you take it in,
you spit it out.
Spit it out at us, which is
But if you think of a little grade or even grade 1 when they come to school, sometimes I think, if parents could hear the information that they share, that comes. But the children are so naturally free and spontaneous. And then you look at them again in grade 5, 6, and 7. Mm-hmm. What has happened?
I don't want to.
And that's the education system. We need to question what happened to that spontaneity and the freedom and the innocence of children. It's lost somewhere along the way.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
Not last year, sorry, when I started at Rustenburg as well, I had the grade 7s, and we had our assemblies online.
Yeah.
And there was one where they had interviewed grade R's, grade 1s, and grade 2s.
No filter.
No filter, which is awesome, which is what it should be about. Yes, you teach them how to be respectful.
Yeah.
In that open, there's no fear.
Sure.
And then I asked my grade 7 class, I said, can you see what you were like back then and who you are now? And it was, I mean, as a teacher, I could see that a lot of that had been lost somewhere along the way, which made me ask, what are we doing to our kids?
Very strange enough, as I was having a conversation with my colleague Pam the other day when it was sports day, and I was like, if you look at the grade 1s and the grade R's, when they are playing sport or they are playing whatever, it is just fun. They don't even know where the ball is. It's just
and it doesn't matter if I come last or I don't even connect with the ball.
And if you look at the older girls, there's some deep competition happening there, and you can see they understand the game and all of that. So it really surfaces what you say. And then maybe let's move to the idea of Rustenburg Girls Junior. What is the plan in terms of PBL and IBL for Rustenburg, and where are we currently?
So, look, I think we've identified that it's definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
We need to break down those silos. We can no longer teach the way that we used to. So in terms of our journey, our grades are at different phases of implementation. And I would say that the foundation phase, I think, are more proactive at this stage. But I do want to motivate why that is so. I think when we spoke about project-based learning and the fact that it's integrated, foundation phase teachers have always been trained that way. We were trained that if little Mary came in with a butterfly, we dropped everything, and everything was about the butterfly.
Yes.
You know, our maths was around the butterfly, and our English was around the butterfly. Whereas intermediate senior phase teachers often have specialized in particular subjects. And even if we look at high school, FET, those teachers specialize. And so it's a lot harder. Their training has never been an integrated approach, and so they find it a little bit more difficult, especially when you're specializing in a subject, to actually integrate. What does it look like for a foundation phase teacher? It comes naturally. So I think that would explain why the foundation phase are a little bit further ahead, because we understand integration. We are also with our classes full time for the full duration of the day. We, as you know, you look at grade 5, 6, 7, where they subject teach. And where we are going to, I would say, is that we obviously would like the entire school to be project-based learning. I don't know, Mal, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in.
You look like you want to jump in.
I think as an intermediate phase teacher, I feel more constrained by the ATPs. So I'm like, how do I integrate all of that? I'd love to do PBL, which is what we eventually going to have to do. Yeah. So I've been thinking about it a lot. I spoke to Pello yesterday.
So I think that's just in terms of supporting our staff, because we've got this difference between, and a divide almost in our training, the way we were trained between foundation phase, intermediate phase. The emphasis now, or the focus, needs to be on the intermediate senior phase. Because we need to show them how to integrate. It's not that the desire and the passion isn't there, as Mal mentioned. She would love to, but she's constricted by a timetable that doesn't allow for project-based learning.
So obviously the school's going to move towards looking at that timetable and saying, you can go ahead. I know it takes a lot of work. I told Tapela, I've been thinking about it for the past year or so. About how to make it happen. But what I've also found with the girls that come to, that I have taught over the past 2 years here, are so used to the old school of teaching that when I sometimes shake up my lessons, they are a bit shaken and they're like, what are you doing? So I think it's a brilliant idea that actually it's happening in the foundation phase. So the kids who will come to us in the
They
next year or
transition
two
from,
will be used to that way of learning, which will make it
But
a lot
Mel,
easier.
it's not only the learners, it's also the parents. In some cases, parents don't want, I've heard parents say, we don't want group work because I don't want my child to get the same mark as everyone else. They don't want the collaborative. We want, give us the worksheets, give us the work to study so that my child can spit out the information so that we can get the code 7 and the 90%.
But sorry, talking over you a bit there. I had a learner in my class this year who is quite, I know we don't want to use the word intelligent, but a curious learner who wants to learn and will learn on our own. And with the way in which things are set out now, it took me a while to be able to see her potential and give her the opportunity to explore and express ideas and see how animated she gets about that.
And that is the beauty of project-based learning.
And that is what is exciting for me.
I think we're going to unpack some examples later on because I actually want to touch on that in terms of, what does CAP say? Because we are a public school, we are obliged to follow the CAPS curriculum. But what does that mean in terms of project-based learning? So we'll unpack that a little bit. Yeah,
can I also add to that? I'm glad that you're going to go there because I think a lot of teachers, as myself in the intermediate phase, are saying, so we need to do...
ATPs.
But we feel like we're told that we need to follow this and that's what we need to do. They don't speak to each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But actually they do.
Okay, you're going to show me and convince me.
Okay. So Renée, now let's speak about the fact that you spoke about foundation phase, how they've been trained, and obviously from grade 4, right? From grade 4 upwards, they trained differently and specialized and all of that.
Yes.
So what is the school doing in order to support the grade 4s until the grade 7 teachers? Is there any training? What's there in place? Because I'm thinking they're probably going to need a little bit of adjusting and some training more than the foundation phase. Not necessarily more than the foundation phase, but I don't know if you know what I mean.
Yes. So now you're getting me really excited.
Yeah.
Because, and I must just, there's a disclaimer here, Lindsay always says from Purple ZA, she didn't pay me to say any of this, but this just comes from my own experiences. So we have an online staff development platform known as Purple ZA, which allows teachers to do staff development and training at their own time, whenever they decide. And also they get to decide what it is that they want to develop and grow in. But what is fabulous about the platform is that you may not necessarily be doing a course on project-based learning, but all the courses that they offer are very much around the collaborative style of teaching, the technology that we use, that sort of thing. So our staff are all on the Purple ZA platform. And besides that, I think what helped us in grade 3 when we started on our project-based learning was giving each grade some time with Lindsay, who is absolutely amazing, giving them a full day where she actually shows you integration and how that actually happens and how you can link subjects across a theme and so on. So we earmarked particular grades and they spend a day with Lindsay. And if they feel somewhere along the line, they'd like another day, we try and accommodate that as much as possible because we know once they are bitten, as it were, there's no going back. Yeah. There definitely isn't any going back.
Perfect. Do you want to jump in, Mel?
I'm listening. I'm just processing what Renée is saying.
Yeah. Okay. So, Renée, with the last 5 minutes, let's now go into the meat of the conversation and what we said we are going to go into.
I thought that was the meat.
This one is marinated.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, what we said we're going to speak about. And maybe before we jump into that, right, from a when I did the intro, I spoke about the fact that you sit on SMT, you sit on SGB, which is from a governance point of view, and you've worked with the WCD, so you'd understand things like caps and the decisions that are made, and you've been in a classroom. So you kind of like understand that holistically, and you're a parent to top it off. So you understand from a parent point of view, from the WC point of view, and from a teacher's point of view. But how does all stakeholders work together to make sure that actually everything is all system goes? Because it's not, for me, I don't look at it as a teacher applying PBL in a classroom, where else parents are saying we want our children to be in a group work, but then PBL speaks something else, and all of that. How do the whole stakeholders actually, what role do they play, and how do they support each other?
I think, as a parent, at the end of the day, what speaks is the results. So our parents want to know, what is there out there? What evidence is there in terms of results? But I just want to take us back a little bit into the history, and I actually needed to Google this. So it's not information that I had ready at hand. But I just went on a journey around where project-based learning actually originated. And it seems like, in my head anyway, it was a 21st century idea. Yeah. But actually not. It goes back to Aristotle and Confucius and so on, where they looked at learning through questioning and inquiry. And then we go to, I think, 20th century, a guy by the name of John Dewey, who challenged the traditional way of teaching.
Sure.
And 20th century as well, Maria Montessori. You may be familiar with the Montessori model of teaching, where children learn by doing.
Yeah.
So this is not something new.
Sure.
But now we look at WCD, and this is where I hear Mal coming in. Like, we've got X to cover. There's a curriculum. There are time constraints. We can't get through everything. How is this? Having sat at the department, I must just tell you that, first of all, WCD is going this route. There's a lot of talk. They've started with the foundation phase already, where they're looking at inquiry-based learning. The problem there is that the wheel turns very slowly, because you have schools who are functioning at different levels, and the needs of the schools are so different. So they can't do a paint everybody with the same brush scenario. So it's going to take a lot longer to get there. Yeah. But they have also realized the value of project-based learning. So in terms of, Mal, to get back to your question around ATPs and how do we make this happen?
Yeah.
So what we've realized, and this is where Lindsay from Purple is absolutely phenomenal, when we do our planning, when you sit down and you plan a project-based learning unit, you actually sit with a CAPS document and you look at all your subjects. So if we're going to be doing, let's say for argument's sake, natural disasters, we look at what is the ATPs for English say? What does it say for maths? So we cover all our ATPs. Yeah. But you will realize, and I actually want to, if time allows, just unpack one or two units that have been done at the school. You will realize that when you plan that unit, you actually offer the learner so much more. It's actually, so for that child who is so curious and so there's so much for her there. Yeah. You actually end up covering so much more at the end of the day than is written in those pages.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The curriculum. Yeah.
Because they'll have more questions about things that.
And remember, you applying this to real life situations. So they're making those connections. They're making connections across their subjects. But learning is becoming more meaningful because I have this problem that I need to solve. And now I become curious because I'm so, I really want to solve this problem. But in order to solve this problem, I need to go on a learning journey. So you get the desire, you get the buy-in for learning.
Yeah. A little bit about how you went about making it happen and work in grade 3. I think that would be a learning experience or insight for, I think, teachers in the intermediate phase as well. I know you did do a little bit of a show and tell to us. But for me,
getting
Mal, into the
even for us, it's kind of, we wanted to do this. We knew what it was, but where do you start?
I know.
That was our question, how, where,
I think that
but
maybe
you know what, Mal?
it will help us in showing us. And I know there are lots of things, I'm sure, that didn't go as planned. You kind of change things up.
Yes.
Things don't work, and you learn from that.
Yeah. But you know what, Mal? Half the battle has been won, because with the intermediate senior phase, and it's not that I'm belittling you guys in any way. It's just
a little bit.
No, your training was different. With the intermediate senior phase, we first had to get the buy-in. We had to get that mindset shift, because this is what you've been trained to do, particularly for teachers who've been teaching for a long time. This is the way we do it. So it was first the mindset shift. That came about through Purple ZA, because the more you engage, the more you start questioning the way you do things. So actually half the battle is already won. Now it's just the how.
Sure. Okay. I think also one of my questions was like, where do you start? Do you start with changing the mindset of the teachers, of the parents, of like, where do you start? Of the kids first, where do we start when we do that? But I think you've actually answered it so well.
Yeah.
And Renée, do you find it challenging? And maybe challenging is not a good. Okay, let me ask you, what has been the challenge in actually bringing PBL to life?
So I think, Tapelo, the big thing is time. Particularly for us at Rustenburg, this is a very busy school.
I agree.
Maybe that's an understatement, Mal.
That's an understatement.
I'm just trying to be polite.
But you know what? If you want to do this and you want to do it properly, then you need the time.
Yeah.
And I think that is our greatest challenge. We've got the buy-in. Our teachers are keen. They're excited. They see the value in it. But you need to sit together. You need that time to sit as a grade team and start unpacking all of this. So I would say that is the greatest challenge, because, when you have to go to SMT and say, look, something's got to give here, because if we want our teachers to do this, and this is our academic vision for the school, we can't carry on as normal and expect our teachers to find that. When must they find the time?
Sure.
I like that you're saying that, because as a teacher and wanting to go that way, there is no time. I think the other day when we had a kind of chat in passing, I said to you that we do need the time. So I'm assuming that will be part of the plan as well, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it is an ongoing challenge, Mal.
Yeah.
It really is. But I think, Tapelo, back to what you were saying in terms of the many hats that I wear or have worn, Mal, that is the advantage, because I am in the classroom. I understand the day-to-day challenges that teachers have. I also sit on SMT, so I see the bigger picture. So I'm always going to be an advocate for the teachers, because I know what it's like.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Sorry, and in your role as acting deputy, I mean, so a lot of teachers feel that you're doing a very good role, a job there, because you. I'm not trying to flatter you, but this is what I see. I speak to a lot of. I speak to
not even do recruitment process, but this is outside.
A lot of staff. I've been with this pop the balloon thing that I've been doing. I've been connecting with a lot of staff, and they have a lot of positive things to say about you. In that, I think an important part of it is that you understand our role as teachers in the classroom.
Yeah, and I think, Mal, I wasn't always like this. Believe you me, especially being an OCD person, it's taken me a while. But I also think that my journey to the department, when I was there for 6 months, I think that also I have a better understanding of, when they send you something today that was due yesterday kind of thing, I have a better understanding of how things work there.
Okay.
And then I have an understanding of the impact that it has on a school, and so on. So I've also grown. I wasn't always like this. But again, it's my passion for teaching. We'll always come back to the passion. And I think, Mel, our teachers don't lack that passion. I see it. but they are tired. There's just too much going on. And again, my fight will be, maybe incorrect word, but my fight is going to be, if we want to do this for project-based learning to really take off at the school, then something's got to give.
Sure.
Those are my famous last words.
So, Renée Harris, when it's all said and done, one day you're walking out of this building, whether retirement, you're done, how do you want to be remembered?
Sure. That's a tough one. I think for me, just being someone who genuinely cares about people, and very passionate about education. People and education.
Cool. Well,
I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say when you were quiet there for a bit thinking, I was going to say as a passionate teacher, person, connecting with others and understanding where they're at, how they're feeling, and how to support them.
Yeah. And I was once that teacher that walked into school and got called to the principal's office because, etiquette and so on. I was there. The rebel,
Yeah. So you've done all of that, and you've added it to
and
your
I'd go back and
experience.
do it again.
and just giving you wisdom.
Yeah, Mrs. Harris, thank you very much for your time. It was just lovely chatting to you. And I speak on behalf of admin staff because Mel has already advocated for teachers. We appreciate you. We love you. And all the best for your journey and continue shining. Thank you for all you do. We see it. Even though you say in your words you advocate for teachers, but I feel like you also put in a good word for us. Things are a bit smooth for us. And I think you've done a wonderful job taking on the shoes from Andrew, and you've
Those were big shoes to fill.
They were big shoes, but you just went in it very smooth. That's why I asked myself, does she get anxious, nervous? Like, there is just nothing. You just run with it. You make decision when you need to make decision, and we run with it. And all the best. I just wish we could just press pause and record no one, because you're doing such a great job that sees like vision 2040 or 4040, and we can just run with it. But anyway, that's not my call to make. That's not my call to make.
But I think thank you for this opportunity. I'm not one for, I'm normally behind the scenes. I like to make magic happen in the classroom. That's my happy space. So, and more I found myself having to speak up and start sharing, because it's also about other teachers and just, it's not about I know it all. It's about let's get together, let's collaborate together. So I think thank you for that space as well, just to allow me to share my little bit of wisdom.
It's not a little bit. Don't underplay it.
28 years, and she's using
I
little
don't
bit.
compare. I don't compare.
How many years are you teaching now?
This is my 16th year, but my story is interesting. I did something else before this, and I only went into teaching at the age of 36. In fact, I had my 2 kids, and then I went back to UCT to do my PGCE. So it was not something that I thought about.
And then you married a teacher, so
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Mel. It was nice doing this with you. Let's do it again, I don't know, tomorrow.
Can we? I enjoyed this. Thanks.
This was a lovely one. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm mentioning boys. I'm hoping some brothers are listening as well. Not only Rustenburg Girls Junior, but everyone who's listening, stay inspired. Thank you very much, and we out.